I'm Amy Ratcliffe, Managing Editor for Nerdist, and today I'm thrilled to present to you Amazon Prime Video's The Wheel of Time panel at New York Comic Con. Decades ago, Robert Jordan's The Eye of the World was the first fantasy book I ever read, and I quickly became enthralled / obsessed with the Wheel of Time books. I know I can speak for fans around the globe when I say we cannot wait to see the Wheel of Time TV series, and I can't wait to introduce new folks to this world. A world we're going to learn more about today. Please allow me to introduce our incredible lineup of panelists. Executive producer and showrunner Ray Judkins, playing Moiraine, Rosalind Pike. Daniel Henney, playing Rand, Yoshi Sadowski. Playing Karen, Marcus Rutherford. Playing Nynaeve, Zoe Robbins. And playing Egwene, Madeline Madden. Yay, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited. This is like your introduction to the world. It's pretty awesome. No pressure, Rob. It's really cool. And I'm gonna put things right on Ray to start off. So, Wheel of Time's been around a little while, as evidenced earlier by my decades comment. There's a small amount of source material. How did you adapt the story, both for longtime fans, but also to make it appealing and digestible for newcomers?
I think the book series is obviously massive, not just in terms of the length and the content of it, but also what it means to people. So many people, millions of people around the world read these books and had some formative experience with them. Something emotional, people that they love, that they read them with. I read them with my mom. So I think the thing that I really viewed as my goal with bringing the series to television was to try to deliver the heart of the series to people. I understand and accept that everyone watching the show will probably be like, that person is not as tall as I expected, that scene is not the look that I thought it would have. They left out my very favorite storyline from the books, but I think if people can just see it up on the screen and feel like at its heart, it feels like the books in that intangible way, then we will have done our job. And I think that does the job of bringing new fans to the show and to the world of Wheel of Time as well, because if we can deliver what all these millions of people loved about the books, then I think it's the same thing people can fall in love with the show.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be an understanding you're adapting books that are an average of 708 pages long. You can't put all of that into, you can't do episodes. Yeah, no. How does The Wheel of Time, do you think, differ from maybe other fantasy stories audiences have seen before?
It's interesting because, when the books came out in the early 90s, there were so many things that were revolutionary about them at the time. It was this first series to have a big ensemble cast with different POV characters that you go into the chapters. It was the first fantasy book series where half that cast was women. But I think the thing for me that's really interesting and really drew me to doing the adaptation of the series now was that Wheel of Time is really more inspired by Hinduism and Buddhism and these Eastern philosophies. So in our world, reincarnation exists, and the ultimate goal is not for good to defeat evil, it's to restore balance to this world that's out of balance. And I think, the world around us right now is fairly polarized. And to have a show that is talking about what it means to find balance, I think is super relevant to the time right now.
Can you tell us a little bit too about the kind of magic in the world?
Yeah, so Rosalind can probably speak to it better than I can, but magic in the world of Wheel of Time is called channeling, and it's this ability to tap into something called the One Power. And in our world, when you first get introduced to it, only women can do this. We think there's a very serious asterisk on that statement that people will learn about as the series goes on. But it really did such a flip on everything in the world of Wheel of Time, this idea that women have more power naturally than men. You see it in every single different culture in the world, providing a different flip that we're not expecting.
So Rafe, I'm obviously thrilled y'all are here today, but I also know that you came with something to show us. Can you set it up?
Yes, we actually got to bring you a little clip today, and I wanted to bring something that I thought was one of those iconic scenes that I still remember from the books. This clip is Moraine's first arrival in the Two Rivers. And it's cool because it's when we get to see all of the lovely people on this panel really interact together and be in the same room for the very first time in the series. So it's that moment that kind of activates everything in the Wheel of Time. It's the moment that these kids who live in this mountain village, their life is never the same from the moment that woman walks into town. So this is that moment.
Name yourself, stranger.
Landmark Dragon. This is Moraine.
My lady, can I help you? We'll need stables for our horses and a room for the night. 2 beds and fresh linen, that's all we need. Of course, Moraine's to die. If you'll come this way.
So Rosamund, Moraine is an incredibly powerful Aes Sedai, and she's not only the character side of the world, but the audience as well. Can you tell me what appealed to you about the role?
Historically, I've been a big reader of fantasy, but with this, that changed my mind. And I know that traditionally, any guide character in a fantasy world is usually a man, and it was very intriguing to have this mysterious stranger who comes to town and changes the lives of people forever, being a woman. There were lots of things about the whole culture of Aes Sedai that really drew me a lot. I think on a sort of spiritual sense, I felt it was the right time in my life to explore a sort of power outside of myself. I think the whole idea of channeling and tapping into something elemental was very appealing to me at this particular moment in my life. And being able to create a language to express that connection really interested me a lot. As well as taking on the responsibility of showing someone who wields great power how they do it, how they use it, when they restrain from using it, what the flip side of it is, what it means to be that person who knows they can use it, and what they're like when they're not using it. All those things really interested me. And the other thing about the Aes Sedai culture is this relationship between an Aes Sedai and her warder. Now, I portrayed many relationships between men and women on screen. I've never played one quite as fascinating as this, which involves intense loyalty, deep trust, huge connection, and yet nothing sexual, nothing romantic. But it's a fidelity and a love that is just as powerful as anything that we know from romantic attachment. And that really interested me a lot. And obviously I found the perfect order in Henry Blair's Land.
Let's hope so.
Daniel, how did you, when you read about the relationship between Lan and Maureen, how did you react to that and kind of feel about that bond?
I felt very similar to Rosamund. I think her and we initially had a FaceTime, geez, it must have been 2 years ago now. Seems like it was just yesterday, but we spoke about that exact same thing. Exploring a new idea of what love is. You know, I think pushing the boundaries of love and seeing the new relationship on screen, how they know everything about each other, they care deeply for each other. They're almost like twins in a way, they can feel everything. But there's nothing sexual, nothing more going on. And it's unique to their relationship because, you know, other warriors in their Aes Sedai have different forms of this relationship too.
Rosamund, I'm curious, going back to the one power a little bit. I know it takes some hand motions that are much cooler than what I'm doing right now. But how did you develop what those gestures would look like when Maureen is using the one power in battle?
Well, I mean, I thought about it a lot, and I know that, this could be controversial because there's a lot of talk in the books on how women learn to use the power. They often learn with their hands, and then as they become more expert, they need to use the gestures less. And I think we knew going into it, I discussed this a lot with Grace, that each woman who comes into our show will get the opportunity to develop her own particular style and the kind of flavour of her own version of channeling. But I think there's a lot in Robert Jordan's writing that talks about dance. There's a lot of things that talks about the ideal of dance, and a lot of things that talks about sword motion, sword players dance. And although I don't think that channeling is in any way dance, I think that Robert Jordan was clearly interested in movement and the way we move. And one thing that was very important to me was that if there were no CGI effects, people would believe that I was connected to something. And for me, that connection comes through movement. I needed to feel that there was, I'm not just throwing out my hands, that there's some deep level in which something is coming in, something bigger than me, because Jordan writes about it so brilliantly, like it fills your veins. I mean, he writes about it almost like a drug that's such an extreme feeling, and it fills your body, takes it over, and that's why you need to learn to control it. So I thought, for me, I need to drink that in, I need to feel it in every fibre, and also I thought it would make cool shots too. We're glad, we had the opportunity for this battle sequence at the end of episode 1, where you can, yes, we can obviously tell you about the connection between an Aes Sedai and the Horde, but in that battle we get the opportunity to show it. We get the opportunity to show that they feel one another's presence. So he, with his, the way he can, work through a series of 5 Trollocs and decimate them, gives her space to connect to the source. All those things, the way they move around each other was really important. And obviously you can make it big, and then if you make it big, you can also make it small. That's the point. It doesn't always have to be big, it can be tiny. You can see the shadow of it later, and because we've seen it before, we'll understand it. I'm going to stop talking now.
That was lovely. I do want to ask Daniel, though, mentioning Trollocs, Lan fights besides Maureen, it involves the Darkwind's creatures, and we saw the Trollocs and Murdral in the trailer. And they're scary, so I want to know your reaction to seeing them on set.
Well, I mean, it's a little different because I know most of the stuntmen are inside of the Trolloc costumes. So they're not as scary, and it's kind of funny because every once in a while one would slip mid-fight, and I'd have to help him up and then slice him down again, which I felt kind of bad about. But they looked absolutely fantastic, and I think it must have been probably the second week of September 2019, we had a sort of a Trolloc reveal where all the Trollocs, we got to see the final look in person, and it was in the middle of the day, full light. You could not tell. I mean, the costumes, it was just the makeup was so amazing. What they've done with these creatures, it was really impressive. And so, when you read the books and they come into Tam and Rand's farm, the way they're described it's so incredible, and it's a tall task to get that right. And I think they did an amazing job with these creatures.
That's awesome. I hope that for the Trolloc reveal, you all got an invite, and that was just the subject.
The Trollocs were actually,
It's gotta be
they were
fine.
being chosen for their different roles during that lineup, so there were a couple really desperate little Trollocs on the end who were not being picked by Luca, the director. And I had always wanted them to have a character that you like really feel for the Trollocs and their differences, and seeing the two little ones on the end looking at Luca to pick them for special fight scenes was hilarious.
Yosha, I want to talk about Rand, clearly. Very early on, Rand gets possession of a special sword. Can you tell us about the blade and also what your training was like?
Yeah, that's the Hermarked blade. The Hermarked blade is, I guess it's a sword that you can only get when you reach a certain level of sword fighting. That's when you become a blade master. It's like, I guess it's like a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Tam, Rand's father, he was a blade master, and he owned such a sword. And yeah, this sword becomes a really important weapon on their journey. But Rand, first of all, is more familiar with his bow and arrow. So I had also archery training besides of the stunts training and all the other trainings that we had.
Do you have a personal preference, bow or sword, as an actor?
I guess I must go with the bow and arrow first, yeah.
Staying true to Rand, I like it. Marcus, I'm curious, so from the teaser trailer, I could see the sets looked wildly massive, especially Shadar Logoth, and I kind of wondered what it's like working on these sets that seem like they're very real.
Yeah, no, that was one thing from like episode 1 right to the end. I just was never ceased to amazed by how epic the sets were. I think Andre, our set designer, is a bit of a genius. And I think maybe in this genre it's hard to create things that are new and original, but every room, sort of inn, tavern, city world that these characters went into, they had their own sort of culture, their own language, and their own character. And I think that was just amazing from day one. I remember my first day in Two Rivers, I was kind of sat on a bench in the middle, and I just sort of did like a 360 view, and I just saw like my forge, where I worked, I saw like the Winespring Inn, and I just had like a village, they built a village basically, like out of nothing. And as an actor, when you have a set built to that magnitude, it's invaluable how helpful that is, and it kind of sets you up perfectly to do your job. So the sets have been, yeah, breathtaking.
Well, that sounds amazing, and I think another part of that is costuming. So Zoe, I wanted to ask, 90s braid, it's a whole thing, it's a hallmark of her character, so I wanted to hear, like, the first time you got into 90s costume, what it was like, and also just kind of what the gorgeous costuming added and bringing the world to life.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Marcus was saying, like the level of artistry on this production is like nothing I've ever experienced before. So just like how they've got like little spins and like I've got a little herb bag and things that you'll never see, I feel, which is kind of sad because you're taking in this amazing spectacle, and the attention to detail is just like ridiculous. So when I first had the costume on, it was just really, I guess, informative for me and really helpful just for me to learn how I was going to walk as Naineen, and when she puts her weight and she definitely walks with her head. And the braid too, I mean, it's so integral to Naineen, and it was really like special for me to be able to incorporate my natural hair texture in the braid. It's such a, I don't know, I feel like we have this really beautiful opportunity to be able to represent in a really loving and careful way, and yeah, it's really, really special.
Oh, that's wonderful. Making me feel warm and fuzzy, and also I'm thinking, I know that some intrepid fan has run a count on how many times Robert Jordan mentioned 90s braid in the books, and it's gotta be up there, so I'm glad.
She tugs that braid.
Madeline, I want to talk about Egwene. She is strong-willed, to say the least. She goes after what she wants, and I kind of want to hear from you, like, what drew you to the role and how you prepared.
I remember when I first got my audition for the role, and I had 3 different scenes, and I just remember each scene was just so different from the other, and I knew that this character would go on such an incredible journey and an emotional one as well. And as an actor, that's kind of everything that you hope for in a character, someone that has really a lot of depth and someone that you can kind of grow with. And I feel like over the past 2 years, I've really grown with Egwene, and I do feel like there are a lot of things that I can kind of relate to her about. But she's the innkeeper's daughter of the Two Rivers, and her family is a part of the fabric of the community there, not just like socially, but politically. So she's really cemented in this village, and she's a fiercely independent, eager, and determined young woman. Something that I really connected to her with was, I think, her sense of duty, of like wanting to make a difference in the world, and making some pretty difficult choices to see that through. And that's something that resonated with me, and I feel like will resonate with a lot of audience members, and why she's such a loved character by the fans. She's constantly having this internal battle, I think, with what her heart wants and what her mind wants, and she feels like she is destined for something greater in the world, and that means she might have to leave the Two Rivers. So it's been an absolute honor to play her and to bring her to life.
I love it. She was my favorite because I grew up in a very small town, and I'm like, if Egwene can go out there in the world, so can I. I'm doing probably lovely things. So, Zoe. So Nynaeve is a wisdom for Evansfield. She is this incredible healer and such a powerful figure in the village. Can you talk about kind of exploring that? Really leadership, even though Nynaeve isn't, she's relatively young.
Yeah, she is. She's the authority figure of the Two Rivers village. And I think she's been undermined her whole kind of wisdom career. So she definitely has like a beacon on it with certain villages. But I think exploring the insecurities that Nynaeve has, but also how headstrong she is has been an absolute gift. She's so amazingly complex and flawed and detailed, and I can't wait for you guys to see her.
I can't wait. Marcus, Perrin also has a unique role in the village. He works with the blacksmith, and he's someone, as we learn, is very conflicted about. He's very he wants to be peaceful, and he tries to be peaceful. Can you talk about trying to be peaceful in a world where there are Trollocs and Fays and all kinds of monsters coming after you?
Yeah, he's our gentle giant, and I think everything he does, is very considered, and he takes a very thoughtful approach to it. And I think Moraine kind of takes our kids into this world outside this village, and he's instantly surrounded by, violence and war and destruction, and it's something that he has to come to terms with, and something that he's very conflicted by. This animal nature that we have inside ourselves, but also this sort of, this kind of passive side that we also have, and I think he's very torn which side is in him and which side is going to kind of take control of him. And I think throughout the series, I think that's something that the audiences are going to enjoy.
All of your characters, go on a journey, and in a fantasy setting, that means a lot of riding horses. Probably a lot of that. And I'm curious, for the group, if you had experience riding horses before with horseback riding, or if you kind of had any fun stories from set about learning that skill.
The horses become characters. You've got the sort of the seven of us, and then you've got 7 horses, which are also a liability. So you've got, wrangle all of that on set, and also try and keep within a frame. So sometimes, we've got my big horse, then we've got Maddie's horse, who's Bella, also a very loved character in the books, and Archie was not the speediest of mounts, was he?
He was not. He was the gassiest. He was the gassiest of mounts, though. Always remember when someone was doing an amazing monologue or some really intense scene talking about how, we just survived 100 Trollocs and a Fade, and then Archie just rips the loudest. You know, back in part one, like the flying away in part one. He was amazing.
Animals, always a wild card. Did any of you feel like you got super attached to your horse while you were filming?
Yeah, man. I don't know, I'd never been on a horse before, so I was quite nervous. Because they're big, man. They're just like big blocks of muscle. And, my horse was really big, because I'm quite big, and he was quite stubborn at the start. And you have this, like, the horse trainers are like, there'll be a moment when you kind of just like, you're going to connect. It's a bit like Avatar, it's all kind of like connect with each other. And there was just like one day in the woods where he was just being so slow, and I just kind of gave him a nice little squeeze. And I swear to God, he did like a little nod, and he went at the right. And ever since then, I've just been like connected. But it's tricky at the start. It's very, very tricky because it's so different to anything you do day to day. Like when are you using those muscles and like sitting like that? I mean, people might do, I don't know, but like it's different to what I do.
We had some difficult scenes where we were riding pretty fast. We couldn't use Rosanette, so there was like a stunt dummy made for her, and that thing was the most difficult. It was terrible because it's like 150 pounds of dead weight you had to have on. We had a harness we had to wear to keep it on so you constantly slip off. You'd think it'd be easier to have that than a real person, but you can't talk to a dummy and say, please, you're sitting on my thigh, my legs asleep. It was just marching around and talking.
It just moves so much. Rosamund can sort of, even if she's sort of ill or whatever, she can hold her body. This dummy is just like, every time you're got it, and you just like, you can't control it, and you're just like, oh, this looks terrible.
I remember we'd like do a trot in like a scene or something, and the dummy's head was just like, like Marcus's shoulder, and the character was like, Marcus, can you just like hold Lorraine's head? And then it kind of gave the scene a different feel of just Karen and Lorraine like.
Because of a sequence where I have to ride on a horse with someone else. It's a privilege to ride with horses. I mean, it's like, if you've ever enjoyed playing dress up, then, you know, it's about the best dress up you can have, really, is being in these fabulous costumes on a beautiful horse in the middle of the most stunning countryside. It's like the best sort of fancy dress party ever, really. Yeah, the horses are beautiful. And the other thing, it's nice in the Czech Republic, actually, we're allowed to do quite a lot. When I did a Western in the States, and the insurance policies are such that it's very, very hard to allow or insure actors to do any of their own riding. And so for us, you know, to obviously with all the bounds of, you know, proper training and as much safety as we can ensure, we're still allowed to do a lot, which is very exciting. You know,
that makes it feel real, you know, like you can feel it all the scenes of you guys on horseback, you feel that idea of this group traveling and they're on a journey and they're working hard and they're given these saddles and you guys did live in those saddles in Prague, so it brought an authenticity to it.
Well, and that's, you know, it's such a hallmark, the epic quest of riding on a horse across beautiful open fields. Like, that's fantasy in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more to it, clearly, but that's another one for the group. And, you know, there are 14 books. It's a pretty massive series, and this is not a test at all, but I'm curious who's the furthest along in reading the books?
Yosha.
How many have you read, Yosha?
I'm at 11 now. I got it here actually.
Oh, you're like, I was doing this before we started. Wow. That is several thousand pages.
I know.
Oh, you're right there. Well, if you steal his book, you'll get ahead. But Yosha, I'm curious, with 11 books, and you're filming, I know you're filming season 2, but is it hard to like have all this book knowledge in your head and all the characters, and then come to set and you're playing the character? Like, is it trouble? I guess you have trouble dissociating between books and work.
Yeah. I guess when we first started, like the first few episodes, new scripts would come in every day, and I feel like we all started reading the books. Danny could be a bit confusing at times, but most of the time it's truly a gift to have so much material to, you know, sink your teeth in. And I'm looking at the book the whole time because it's here. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's amazing to get to understand the world of the Wheel of Time with its different beliefs, its different cultures, with different people in all the different places, and then of course the great arc of, you know, Rand and trying to understand his character, to see where he goes, what his state of mind is, state of body even, and that's why I love to read the books. And it's a pretty big mountain to climb, but I feel I'm almost on the top of the Mount Everest, and I guess the view from up there must be pretty amazing. Yeah.
No, everything. It'll be great.
I don't know, you know, if I feel like if there would be a Wheel of Time University and you would study there for a couple of years, after, you know, graduating, there still would be room for new interpretations and new ideas, and I feel like you could, you know, dive into the Wheel of Time for until eternity, probably. You know.
Race line, I'm living that.
Truly, you can. I promise. I have now read those first three. I think my first two copies of them both I wore through to where I can't use them anymore. They're just like loose pages. You just read them and read them and read them. And Yosha's right, like you can read them what feels like so many times, and they're so long, and there's new stuff that you find there. And anytime I'm feeling stuck on any scene anywhere in the series, I'll just open up one of the books and start reading, even if it has nothing to do with the scene that you're working on, and you just sort of fall back into it.
Like today, I figured something today. I worked on this show for 2 years, so I grew up in Rotterdam. That's where I was born and raised. And then I lived there, and I went to Amsterdam to study at drama school. So I lived like 23 years of my life in this area of cities. And then I took that plane to Prague and started this Wheel of Time adventure. Today I found out that, you know, the area with all these cities is actually called Randstad, which translates to Rand City. If that isn't the pattern, then I don't know what it is.
I like that. That's so good.
That's dangerous for your ego. I grew up in Rand City. It's crazy.
There are these signs. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The wheel has woven. I'm curious, is there anyone on set that is like, I don't want to read the books, I don't want to know where it's going?
There are some people who get upset about spoilers, like when we're in a production meeting and I'm like, okay, well then this character is going to die in season 3, and they're like, no! Why would you do that? And there'll be someone you didn't even really expect to be super invested in the books and the series, and like, you know, one of the second costume assistants is just like gasping when I see something that's coming. So you actually try to be careful, because people are fairly invested in the story, and they're mostly sticking to like where we are in the series.
Well, Rafe, I wanted to ask you, you know, the Wheel of Time, the world has so many just beautiful cities, made all the more kind of incredible because our main cast is from a very small village. What was it like bringing that to life, you know, based on Robert Jordan's, very good descriptions, but still words on a page to, wow, here's the White Tower.
You know, he had extremely thorough descriptions of a lot of places and rooms and cities the whole way through the series, and so we always would use those as the starting point for it, and really like try to, our book researcher who's on the show, who's read the books 30 times, she would create a document for any place that we go to with all the details that are listed, you know, in the books and passages from the books, and it's like you get a little chunker on every city that we go to for everyone to read and know what the book said. And then I think from there it's important that people, you know, put their own artistic bent into it. Like we have this unbelievable production design team led by Andre Mecasil, and you know, I think it's important that people really take what's there and then find a way to put something of themselves into it. And I think that when you have that happening, it creates something more beautiful that we all get to work and play in. And if we were all just trying to recreate everything word for word from the book, it would actually end up feel a little more stale. And I think The Wheel of Time is such an emotional series, like having the people making it emotionally invested in it is actually pretty important.
I can't wait, and we've learned so much about season 1, and I've got to learn more. We've all got to learn about your characters and some of the world, and I'm grateful for that. But I know you're filming season 2, and I don't want to be greedy or get ahead of ourselves. But is there anything you can share with everyone about season 2 today? And you're on the spot, so you don't really have a choice.
No. We knew this was coming, so we did talk to the powers that be. And it does feel crazy when the show hasn't even premiered yet to be talking about season 2. But we're not just talking about it. We've written it, we're shooting it, we're all working on it right now. And we have some new cast members in the show too who are just amazing, and everyone who's read the books knows how this world just keeps expanding, and the new characters that you meet bring so much to the show. So I have been given permission, if they don't cut this from the thing, but that we are going to meet someone in season 2 that I think a lot of book fans will be dying to see brought to life, and that's Elaine Japan's daughter, Erica Andor, and she will be played by Kira Coveney. And I think genuinely every single person on the production, from the first casting assistant that watched Kira's tape, through to me, to costumes, to hair, to the cast, as every person has met her, they have come to me and said afterwards, she is Elaine. That girl is Elaine. Like, I don't know, I can never see anyone else being her now. So I think I'm really excited for the world to be able to get to see Kira and what she's doing with the character of Elaine in season 2. And I think on top of that, I don't get to say names for these two, but I get to talk about 2 other actors who are coming to the show, and that is Natasha O'Keefe and Mira Sayal. And they're playing 2 of the most important characters in the whole book series. I mentioned there will be 50 videos streaming online within minutes of this finishing, trying to decide who Natasha and Mira are playing. But I think that they are also going to really deepen and bring to life the rest of the world of the Wheel of Time.
That's amazing. Thank you for giving us a peek into the future. I can't wait.
Or this just is on the floor after they're like, no, you can't talk about it.
That's all. The rest of this won't make sense. That'll be great. No, I'm so excited for season 2. I can't wait for season 1 first, though. So I want to thank you all today for hanging out, for sharing some insight into the world and your characters. It's been so much fun, and we really appreciate all of you who are watching. And don't forget that The Wheel of Time premieres on Amazon Prime Video on November